is 1.7 million. It's a pretty big number, and it's hard to understand, but I'm just going to explain it really quick. So if you start with the number 17, and you take 10 groups of 17, you've got 170, take 10 groups of that, 10 more groups, 10 groups, you have to do that 5 times. If you can just picture these 17 dots grouped into 10 5 times, that's 1.7 million. It's pretty big. It's basically mind-blowingly huge. So, you've all seen things like this before. So that's 1.7 million. And I'm just going to jump back now to early last year. So this was me then, unicyclist, taking a year off after high school, trying to figure out what I want to do, doing some things. And it was halfway through my year off, and I was just a bit frustrated because I wasn't doing something, like I was getting odd jobs around and stuff, and I didn't feel like I was contributing in any meaningful way. So, if I ask everybody here, just answer in your head, all the wars that are going on in the world right now. Just think of a few names of wars that are going on right now. I doubt the letters LRA mean anything to very many of you. It stands for Lord's Resistance Army, but it's 3 letters that scare a lot of people. And what the LRA does is they have been fighting in Uganda. They're a warring rebel group in a war that's been going on for 24 years. And it's going on today. And definitely the saddest thing about this war is the child soldiering that happens. So the LRA goes into villages, they abduct children, indoctrinate them into the army as young as 5 years old. It's crazy. And in the past 4 months, something like 200 children have been abducted. This is happening today. I haven't heard anything about it through the mainstream media. I don't know about you guys, but I think that's a real problem. So I decided I wanted to do something about it. So I decided I was going to ride my unicycle across Canada. Kind of crazy, but a lot of people do it on bikes, so I figured it's got to be possible. It's a little bit different. I thought that would help me kind of get a little more attention to the issue that I wanted to support. And so I just kind of figured out that I was going to do it. So unicycling across Canada, it's not a record. People have gone further. Somebody's done it before, but I got to do something crazy, which I think is important for me personally. And I got to experience something that I think is kind of mind-blowing. So a few days before I left on my trip, I was at the Green Door restaurant with my friend, just kind of catching up the last time before I headed out. And halfway through the meal, he brings out this calculator he brought with him. And starts asking me a few questions. How far is your trip? 4,700 kilometers. And how big is your wheel? And we figured out that it takes me 363 wheel revolutions for every kilometer I ride. And when you multiply those together, it's a direct drive wheel, so I have to actually pedal every single one of the 1.7 million pedal strokes that it takes to get from Victoria, BC to Ottawa, Ontario. That kind of blew my mind because I've always thought a lot about numbers and how we try to understand them. You can't really understand a number like 1.7 million. But I always thought that when you experience something, you understand it. That's what leads to understanding is experience. So I thought this is going to be a way for me to really understand something that big. I thought it was going to be pretty cool. So, the typical details. I slept on the side of the road about half the time. I stayed in people's houses a lot. The best part of the tour, by far, was the people I met. Just incredible, the whole time. No cynicism whatsoever. It was amazing. One of the first incredible people of the trip is this guy here, Darren Bedford. That's in his friend's bike shop where he's rebuilding my wheel. This is on the stopover on the train in Toronto when he agreed to check out and make sure my unicycle was in okay shape, and it wasn't. It had to rebuild the whole thing. He's great. This is at the Pacific Ocean, mile 0. And so in Victoria, BC, I got lost on the way here, but I just like ran into some people. They had never seen a unicycle that big, and they were really interested in stuff. It was really cool. This is the morning after the first night that I actually spent camping. This is in the mountains in Manning Park. Just gorgeous landscapes, you know, misty mornings, and like everything you need to dream of in the mountains. It was crazy. This is heading into a Soyuz. A few kilometers before this, I ran out of water, and you know, some people helped me out. I gave me some water. I stayed on an emu farm. The lady there was a nurse, gave me tons of nutritional advice. This is the biggest truck in the world, Scarwood, BC. For perspective, it's pretty big. Dave Cox took this picture. He's actually another unicyclist who I met up with, and he ended up riding a few days with me. This is in Saskatchewan. I'm going to stop for a second by Lake Superior. 27th of June last year. This was the day 3,630 kilometers into my trip. I pedaled my millionth pedal stroke. So I had consciously repeated an action at this point 1 million times. Been thinking about it, doing it over and over again. So like now I have this experience. I can think back on it, and so what's it like to know what 1 million means? I don't know what a million means. I don't know what it means to ride across Canada on a unicycle. I know what it's like, you know, for a day to ride on a unicycle, but I'm just like, I don't think anybody can really understand anything that big. Just, you know, to illustrate, if you have a forest with 100 trees, I have a logging company, and I go in and I cut down 100 of your trees. Can anyone here tell me qualitatively, how does that change your forest? 100 is a lot of trees, 100. But that's a million trees. Like, I don't know, I can understand the number 7. It's easy. It's more than a few, less than 10. I can do 7. But I was able to do something that took 1.7 million. And so I think it's key to realize that no matter how global the perspective on big ideas, no matter how big the number or whatever, you understand it on a small scale. Everybody breathes 30,000 times every day. That's 2 million in the time that it took me to do my trip. One of the big problems in Uganda was internally displaced people. At the peak of this crisis, there was 1 million internally displaced people within Uganda. The people there were displaced by the LRA, which is a small group who managed to displace 1 million. But that was something that was done by people. And I think it's important to remember that these big problems are inevitably fixed by people. So what's after 1.7 million? Next summer, I'm helping organize this tour. Ottawa St. John's. It's going to be next summer. The big difference this time, it's a bit shorter, but we're going to get 22 riders out, which works out to 40,000 kilometers. The Earth's circumference is 40,600, so we're going to ride almost around the world. And I'm just going to wrap up my presentation here. I think you don't have to understand something to accomplish it. Don't let big numbers and big ideas intimidate you. It's always people who affect change. It's always people.